He had been left for dead in the woods. No radio, no backup, just blood on the pine needles and the silent trees of Blackthorn Grove closing in. Officer Marcus Thompson had stumbled onto something he was never meant to see, and now someone had made certain he wouldn't live to tell about it. But fate had other plans. Two young girls and their faithful companion were about to prove that sometimes the smallest acts of courage can shake an entire community to its core. What happened next would challenge everything you think you know about bravery, family, and the power of doing what's right when nobody's watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because this is the kind of story that reminds us why hope still exists in this world. The morning mist clung to the forest floor like ghostly fingers, weaving between the towering pines of Blackthorn Grove. It was the kind of October day that painted the world in shades of gold and amber, where every breath tasted of wood smoke and possibility. The small mountain town of Cedar Falls, Colorado, had always been the sort of place where neighbors knew each other's names and children still played outside until the streetlights flickered on. Emma and Lily Chen, 12-year-old twins, moved through the familiar woodland paths with the confidence that comes from years of exploration. Emma, the elder by 7 minutes, walked with purposeful strides, her dark eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. Her sister Lily followed close behind, gentler in her movements, stopping occasionally to examine an interesting rock or collect a particularly beautiful leaf. Though they shared the same delicate features and straight black hair, their personalities couldn't have been more different. Emma was the guardian, always looking out for danger. Lily was the dreamer, finding wonder in the smallest details. At their side trotted Max, a 4-year-old golden retriever mix whose coat gleamed like burnished copper in the filtered sunlight. The dog had been with them since he was a puppy, rescued from the local animal shelter after washing out of a service dog training program due to his overly friendly nature. What he lacked in discipline, he made up for in loyalty and an almost supernatural ability to sense when something was wrong. The girls had taken this particular trail dozens of times before, but today something felt different. The usual chorus of birdsong seemed muted, and even the squirrels appeared to be keeping their distance. Max's ears kept twitching, and he would occasionally stop to sniff the air with unusual intensity. "Do you think we should turn back?" Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper as she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Emma shook her head, though she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. "We're almost to the clearing. Let's just check it out, and then head home." They had been walking for nearly 30 minutes when Max suddenly froze, his entire body going rigid. A low growl rumbled from deep in his throat, something the normally peaceful dog almost never did. The twins stopped immediately, their hearts beginning to race. "What is it, boy?" Emma asked, reaching down to place a calming hand on the dog's head. Max's response was to bolt off the main trail, crashing through the underbrush with an urgency that sent both girls scrambling after him. Branches caught at their jackets, and pine needles scattered in their wake as they pushed deeper into the forest. The sound of their own breathing seemed impossibly loud in the sudden silence. 20 yards from the path, they found him. Officer Marcus Thompson lay crumpled against the base of a massive pine tree, his dark uniform torn and stained with blood that had seeped into the forest floor. His radio was nowhere to be seen, and his service weapon lay several feet away, as if it had been thrown there. The man's face was ashen, his lips tinged with blue, and a terrible wound in his side rose and fell with each labored breath. Lily gasped and instinctively stepped backward, but Emma dropped to her knees beside the injured officer. Her hands shook as she assessed the situation, trying to remember everything she'd learned from the first aid course their mother had insisted they take the previous summer. "He's alive," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "But he's hurt really bad." Max circled the scene, whimpering softly, his nose working to pick up any scents that might indicate danger. The dog positioned himself between the girls and the surrounding forest, as if standing guard against whatever had done this. Lily fumbled for the old cell phone their parents had given them for emergencies. Her fingers trembled as she tried to dial, and for a terrifying moment, the screen showed no signal bars. Then, mercifully, one bar appeared. 911, what's your emergency? The dispatcher's voice crackled through the speaker. "We found a police officer," Lily managed to say, her words tumbling over each other. "He's hurt really bad. There's blood everywhere." While her sister spoke to the dispatcher, Emma was already taking action. She pulled off her fleece jacket and pressed it firmly against the worst of the bleeding, just as she'd been taught. The fabric quickly turned dark with blood, but she maintained pressure, whispering words of encouragement to the unconscious man. "Stay with us," she murmured. "Help is coming. You're going to be okay." Officer Thompson had been with the Cedar Falls Police Department for 5 years. At 28, he was known for his gentle approach with the community's children and his dedication to keeping the mountain trails safe from illegal activities. What the twins couldn't have known was that Marcus had been investigating reports of suspicious activity in the remote areas of Blackthorn Grove. Drug trafficking, possibly weapons smuggling, something big enough that someone was willing to kill to keep it quiet. The dispatcher's voice came through the phone again. "I need you to stay on the line with me. Can you tell me exactly where you are?" Lily looked around desperately. "We're in Blackthorn Grove on the South Trail. Maybe half a mile from the old wooden bridge." "Okay, honey. I've got units on the way. Is the officer conscious?" Emma checked, gently shaking the man's shoulder. There was no response. "No, he's not waking up, and there's so much blood." "You're doing great," the dispatcher assured them. "Keep pressure on the wound. Don't try to move him. How long do you think he's been there?" The girls looked at each other. The blood on the ground had partially dried, and the officer's skin felt cold to the touch. "Maybe an hour," Emma guessed. "Maybe longer. 20 minutes felt like 20 hours. The twins took turns maintaining pressure on the wound while Max kept watch, his ears constantly moving as he monitored the forest around them. Every few minutes, they could hear the distant sound of sirens getting closer, but the winding mountain roads meant it would take time for help to reach them. As they waited, Emma noticed something glinting in the underbrush near where they'd found the officer's weapon. She pointed it out to Lily, who carefully retrieved what appeared to be a torn piece of fabric, dark blue and official-looking. "Should we touch it?" Lily whispered. "Better not," Emma replied. "The police will want to see everything exactly as we found it." The sound of approaching voices finally reached them through the trees. Heavy boots crashed through the undergrowth, and suddenly the small clearing was filled with paramedics and police officers. The twins found themselves gently but firmly moved aside as the professionals took over, their practiced hands working with an efficiency born of experience. "You girls did good," one of the paramedics told them as his partner worked to stabilize Officer Thompson. "Really good. You might have saved his life." As the officer was carefully loaded onto a stretcher and carried back toward the trail, Detective Sarah Martinez approached the twins. She was a woman in her early 40s with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. "I'm going to need you to tell me exactly what happened," she said gently. "Everything you saw, everything you heard, even if it seems unimportant." And so began a story that would unravel secrets buried deep in the heart of Cedar Falls. secrets that someone had been willing to kill to protect. The girls recounted their discovery step by step, their voices growing steadier as Detective Martinez listened with patient attention. Max sat between them, his golden coat still damp from the morning mist, occasionally nuzzling one of the twins when their voices wavered. "We were just walking the regular trail," Emma explained. Max started acting weird, like he smelled something that scared him. Then he just took off running. "And you followed him?" Martinez asked, making notes in a small leather notebook. Lily nodded. "We always follow Max when he acts like that. He's never wrong about these things. It's like he knows when something's not right." The detective studied the dog with new interest. "Has he done this before?" "Once," Emma replied. "Last year, he led us to Mrs. Patterson when she fell and broke her ankle on the North Trail. She'd been there for hours." As they spoke, crime scene technicians worked methodically around the area where Officer Thompson had been found. They photographed everything, collected evidence, and carefully examined the ground for any clues that might lead them to whoever had left a police officer to die in the wilderness. Detective Martinez closed her notebook and looked at both girls seriously. "I want you to understand something. What you did today was incredibly brave. Most people would have panicked or run away. But you stayed calm. You helped someone who couldn't help himself, and you very likely saved Officer Thompson's life." The twins exchanged glances. They didn't feel particularly brave. They felt scared, confused, and more than a little overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they'd stumbled into. "Is he going to be okay?" Lily asked quietly. "The doctors are doing everything they can," Martinez replied. "He lost a lot of blood, but you stopped the worst of the bleeding. That made all the difference." As they prepared to leave the forest, Martinez's radio crackled to life. She stepped away to take the call, speaking in low tones that the girls couldn't quite make out. When she returned, her expression had grown more serious. "Girls, I need to ask you to keep what happened here today between us for now. Don't talk to reporters, don't post anything online. This investigation is just beginning, and we need to make sure we don't compromise anything." The walk back to the trailhead felt different than their journey in. The forest seemed to watch them with new eyes, and every shadow held the possibility of danger. Max stayed close to the girls, his usual playful demeanor replaced by alert vigilance. At the parking area, they found their mother waiting beside her car, her face pale with worry. Linda Chen was a pediatric nurse at the local hospital, accustomed to handling emergencies, but finding out that her daughters had discovered a critically injured police officer had shaken her to her core. "Are you hurt? Are you okay?" she asked, pulling both girls into a fierce embrace before they could even answer. "We're fine, Mom," Emma assured her. "We just found him and called for help. The paramedics said we did good." Linda held them at arm's length, studying their faces for any sign of trauma. What she saw were her daughters, somehow more mature than they'd been that morning, marked by an experience that had forced them to grow up just a little bit faster. Detective Martinez approached them, her badge glinting in the afternoon sunlight. "Mrs. Chen, I'm Detective Martinez. Your daughters are heroes today. They handled themselves with remarkable composure under extremely difficult circumstances." "Thank you," Linda said, though her voice still carried the tremor of a mother who'd come close to losing something precious. "What happens now?" "We'll need to speak with them again, probably tomorrow. There are some follow-up questions, and we may need them to walk us through exactly where they found Officer Thompson. But for today, they should go home, get some rest, and try to process what they've been through." The drive home was quiet, punctuated only by the soft sound of the radio and Max's gentle panting from the back seat. Linda kept glancing in the rearview mirror at her daughters, still trying to wrap her mind around what had happened. Mom? Lily's voice was small. Why would someone hurt a police officer? Linda considered her words carefully. Sometimes people do bad things, honey, and sometimes they're willing to hurt anyone who might stop them. But that's why we have brave people like Officer Thompson, and that's why what you girls did today matters so much. Will he really be okay? Emma asked. I don't know, Linda admitted. But I do know that because of you two, he has the best possible chance. As they pulled into their driveway, the familiar sight of their modest mountain home felt like a sanctuary. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the front yard, and the American flag hanging from their porch moved gently in the breeze. Everything looked exactly the same as it had that morning, but somehow the world felt fundamentally different. Inside, Linda made hot chocolate while the girls sat at the kitchen table, Max curled up at their feet. The events of the day seemed almost surreal now, like something from a movie rather than their actual lives. Do you think we'll get in trouble? Lily asked, wrapping her hands around her warm mug. For what? Linda asked, surprised. For going off the trail, for not coming home when Max started acting weird. Emma looked at her sister with something approaching amazement. Lily, we saved someone's life. Nobody's going to be mad about that. But even as she said it, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that their troubles were just beginning. Detective Martinez's warning about keeping quiet, the serious expressions of all the police officers, the way everyone seemed to be looking over their shoulders, it all suggested that Officer Thompson's attack was part of something much larger and more dangerous than a simple assault. That evening, as the twins helped their mother prepare dinner, the local news played on the television in the living room. The lead story was about the attack on Officer Thompson, though the reporters had few details beyond the basic facts. They mentioned that he'd been found by 2 local residents, but didn't identify the girls by name. That's us, Lily said quietly, staring at the screen. That's us. Emma agreed, but she didn't sound excited about it. As night fell over Cedar Falls, the Chen family gathered around their dinner table as they did every evening. But tonight felt different. Tonight, they were acutely aware of how quickly life could change, how a simple walk in the woods could transform into something that would be remembered for years to come. Outside, the mountains stood silent under a canopy of stars, keeping their secrets close. But somewhere in those shadows, the people responsible for nearly killing Officer Marcus Thompson were making plans of their own. They had no idea that their carefully laid schemes had been disrupted by 2 12-year-old girls and a golden retriever with an extraordinary nose for trouble. The investigation was just beginning, and before it was over, it would expose corruption that reached into the very heart of Cedar Falls's most trusted institutions. The investigation that would follow would uncover layers of corruption that no one in Cedar Falls could have imagined. But first, Officer Marcus Thompson had to survive the night. At Cedar Valley Medical Center, Dr. Patricia Williams worked with steady hands in the brightly lit trauma bay. She'd been an emergency physician for 15 years, but cases like this still made her pulse quicken. The officer had lost nearly half his blood volume, and the wound pattern suggested this wasn't a random attack. "How's he doing?" Detective Martinez asked quietly from the doorway. Dr. Williams looked up briefly, her surgical mask hiding most of her expression. "He's fighting. The next few hours will tell us everything. Those girls who found him, they did exactly the right things. Any longer out there, and we wouldn't be having this conversation." Back at the Chen household, sleep came fitfully for the twins. Emma lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of their discovery. The image of Officer Thompson's pale face wouldn't leave her mind. Down the hall, she could hear her mother on the phone, speaking in hushed tones to their father, who was 3 states away on a business trip. Lily tossed and turned in the bed next to her sisters, occasionally whimpering in her sleep. Max had positioned himself on the floor between their beds, his ears constantly moving as he monitored every sound in the house. The dog seemed to understand that something significant had shifted in their world. At 3 in the morning, Linda Chen sat at her kitchen table with a cup of coffee she hadn't touched, staring out the window at the dark forest beyond their backyard. As a nurse, she'd seen plenty of trauma, but having her daughters involved in something like this felt different. The protective instincts that had guided her through 12 years of motherhood were now screaming that her girls might be in danger. Her phone buzzed with a text from Detective Martinez. "Thompson Stable. Need to meet with girls tomorrow at 2 p.m. Station or your home. Your choice." Linda typed back quickly. "Our home. Thank you for the update." Miles away, in a cabin hidden deep in the mountains surrounding Cedar Falls, 3 men sat around a wooden table lit by a single kerosene lamp. The oldest, a man in his 50s with graying hair and calloused hands, studied a topographical map spread before them. "The cop's still alive," he said, his voice carrying the flat accent of someone who'd spent decades in these mountains. "That changes things." "Maybe not," replied the second man, younger but with the same hard edge to his features. "He was unconscious when we left him. Might not remember anything." The third man, distinguished looking with silver hair and expensive outdoor gear, shook his head grimly. "We can't take that chance. Too much money involved. Too many people counting on us to keep this quiet." "What about the kids who found him?" the younger man asked. The older man's jaw tightened. "Kids don't see things the same way adults do. They might not have noticed anything important. But we'll keep an eye on them, just to be safe." What none of them knew was that Emma Chen had one of the most observant minds in her 7th grade class, and that Lily had an almost photographic memory for details that others missed. The twins had seen more than anyone realized. The next morning dawned crisp and clear, with frost painting delicate patterns on the windows of the Chen house. Linda had called in sick to the hospital, something she rarely did, but she couldn't bring herself to leave the girls alone after what they'd been through. Over breakfast, the twins were quieter than usual. Emma pushed scrambled eggs around her plate without eating much, while Lily kept glancing toward the window as if expecting to see something threatening emerge from the tree line. "Detective Martinez is coming by this afternoon," Linda told them gently. "She needs to ask you some more questions about yesterday." Emma nodded solemnly. "Do you think Officer Thompson is going to be okay?" "I called the hospital this morning," Linda said. "He made it through the night, which is a very good sign. Dr. Williams is one of the best trauma surgeons in the state." What Linda didn't mention was the rest of her conversation with the hospital. Officer Thompson had briefly regained consciousness around dawn and had whispered something about the shipment and "they know I saw them" before slipping back into sedation. The nurses had noted it in his chart, and it was already making its way to Detective Martinez's desk. At Cedar Falls Elementary School, news of the twins' heroic actions had spread through the building like wildfire. Despite their parents' instructions to keep details private, word had somehow gotten out that Emma and Lily Chen were the ones who'd saved Officer Thompson's life. Principal Robert Hayes, a kind man in his early 60s who'd known the Chen family since the girls were in kindergarten, called them into his office during lunch. "I want you both to know how proud our entire school community is of you," he said, his voice warm with genuine admiration. "What you did took incredible courage and presence of mind." Emma shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "We just did what anyone would have done." "No, Principal Hayes said firmly. Most people would have panicked. Most people wouldn't have known how to help. You girls are special, and I hope you understand that. But even as he praised them, Principal Hayes couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. In a small town like Cedar Falls, news traveled fast, and not everyone who heard about the twins' involvement would view it as a positive development. Some people had reasons to want Officer Thompson's investigation to die with him in those woods. That afternoon, Detective Martinez arrived at the Chen house carrying a leather portfolio and wearing the expression of someone who'd spent the morning uncovering disturbing information. Linda welcomed her in, offering coffee that was gratefully accepted. The twins sat on the living room couch with Max between them, the dog's presence providing comfort that both girls desperately needed. Detective Martinez pulled out a small digital recorder and placed it on the coffee table. I want to record our conversation today, if that's okay with everyone, she said. Sometimes people remember details later that they didn't think were important at first. Linda nodded her consent, and the girls agreed. Let's start from the beginning, Martinez said. Tell me about your walk yesterday morning. What time did you leave the house? Emma took the lead, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. We left around 9:30. We always take the South Trail on Saturday mornings. It's kind of our tradition. Did you see anyone else on the trail? Any cars in the parking area? The twins looked at each other. There was a dark pickup truck, Lily said suddenly. I remember because it had mud all over the license plate, like someone had done it on purpose. Detective Martinez leaned forward slightly. What color was the truck? Black, I think, or maybe dark blue. It was hard to tell because it was so dirty, Emma added. There were some camping supplies in the back. Sleeping bags, maybe a cooler. But it looked like they'd been there for a while. This was new information, and Martinez made careful notes. Did you see anyone near the truck? Both girls shook their heads. Now, when Max started acting strange, can you describe exactly what he did? Emma petted the dog thoughtfully. He stopped walking and got really tense. His ears went up, and he started sniffing the air like he smelled something bad. Then he growled, which he never does. And then he ran off the trail? He didn't just run, Lily corrected. He was moving like he had a purpose, like he knew exactly where he was going. Detective Martinez studied Max with new interest. Has he ever done anything like that before? Once, Emma replied. Last summer, he led us to Mrs. Patterson when she got hurt, but this felt different, more urgent. When you found Officer Thompson, was there anything else around him? Anything that looked like it didn't belong in the forest? The twins exchanged glances again. Emma reached into her pocket and pulled out a small plastic bag. I picked this up, she said hesitantly. I know we probably shouldn't have touched anything, but I thought it might be important. Inside the bag was a brass button, tarnished but clearly military in origin. Detective Martinez felt her pulse quicken as she examined it through the plastic. Where exactly did you find this? About 10 feet from where Officer Thompson was lying, Emma said. It was caught on a branch, like someone had brushed against it. This was potentially crucial evidence, and Martinez made a note to have it processed immediately. Good thinking, Emma. This could be very helpful. As the interview continued, more details emerged. Lily remembered hearing what sounded like an ATV engine in the distance, though she hadn't thought much of it at the time. Emma recalled that Officer Thompson's radio was missing, but his badge and nameplate were still attached to his uniform. One more question, Martinez said as she prepared to leave. Have either of you noticed anyone paying unusual attention to you since yesterday? Anyone watching your house or following you? Linda's face went pale at the suggestion, but the girls shook their heads. "We've been inside mostly," Emma said. "Mom didn't want us going anywhere." After Detective Martinez left, Linda double-checked all the locks on their doors and windows. The brass button discovery had clearly troubled the detective, and her final question about being watched had introduced a new level of fear into their home. That evening, as the family sat down to dinner, Linda's phone rang. The caller ID showed the hospital's number. "Mrs. Chen, this is Dr. Williams. I wanted to let you know that Officer Thompson is awake and asking about the girls who saved his life. He'd like to thank them when he's feeling stronger." "How is he doing?" Linda asked. "It's much better. He's going to make a full recovery, thanks to your daughter's quick thinking." After Linda hung up, she looked at Emma and Lily with a mixture of pride and lingering worry. "Officer Thompson wants to meet you both when he's feeling better." "Really?" Lily's eyes lit up for the first time since the incident. "But," Linda continued carefully, "Detective Martinez asked us to be extra careful for the next few days. What you girls did was incredibly brave, but it may have put you in some danger." Emma's expression grew serious. "What kind of danger?" Linda chose her words carefully. "The people who hurt Officer Thompson are still out there. They might not be happy that he survived, or that there were witnesses to what happened." That night, as Linda tucked the twins into bed, she noticed that both girls seemed older somehow, as if the events of the past 2 days had forced them to grow up faster than she would have liked. "Mom?" Emma's voice was small in the darkness. "Are we going to be okay?" Linda sat on the edge of her daughter's bed, smoothing her hair. "Yes, sweetheart. The police are watching out for us, and your father will be home tomorrow. We're going to be just fine." But even as she said the words, Linda couldn't shake the feeling that their ordeal was far from over. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows and sending pine branches scraping against the roof. In the darkness beyond their yard, Blackthorn Grove kept its secrets, but not for much longer. The brass button that Emma had found would prove to be the first thread that, when pulled, would unravel a conspiracy involving some of Cedar Falls's most respected citizens. But that discovery was still hours away, sitting in an evidence bag at the police station, waiting for morning and a lab technician who would recognize its significance immediately. For now, the Chen family slept fitfully, protected by locked doors and a golden retriever who had appointed himself their guardian. Max lay across the threshold of the twins' bedroom, his ears constantly moving as he monitored every sound in the night. He had been the first to sense danger in the forest, and he would be the first to detect it if it came looking for them. The morning that would change everything started like any other in Cedar Falls, but by dawn, the truth would finally surface. At the police lab, forensic technician Maria Santos arrived early to process the evidence from Officer Thompson's attack. The brass button caught her attention immediately. Under magnification, she could make out partial letters: U.S., AR, and what appeared to be part of an eagle insignia. "Detective Martinez?" Maria's voice carried urgency as she called the lead investigator. "You need to see this. The button your witnesses found, it's from a military dress uniform. Army, to be specific. And it's not old." Martinez felt pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. "How recent?" "The brass composition changed in 2018. This button was manufactured after that date." While the lab worked its magic, Officer Thompson was finally strong enough for a proper interview. Detective Martinez sat beside his hospital bed, recorder ready, as the injured officer struggled to piece together fragments of memory. "I followed tire tracks off the main logging road," he said, his voice still weak but determined. "Found a clearing with military surplus crates, weapons, night vision equipment. stuff that shouldn't be in civilian hands. Martinez leaned forward. Did you see who was there? Thompson's jaw tightened. 3 men. One was definitely military, based on how he moved, how he spoke. When they spotted me, the older guy said something about keeping the pipeline clean. Then everything went black. Can you describe any of them? The military guy was maybe 40, built like he still runs PT every morning. The older one had local accent, knew the terrain. But the third one... Thompson paused, struggling with the memory. He was wearing expensive gear. Spoke like someone educated. Someone with authority. Meanwhile, Emma and Lily were at school, trying to maintain normalcy while dealing with newfound celebrity status among their classmates. During lunch, Emma noticed a man in a baseball cap watching them from across the street through the cafeteria windows. "Lily," she whispered, nudging her sister. "Don't look directly, but there's someone watching us." Lily casually glanced over. The man immediately turned and walked away, but not before she caught sight of his face. Something about him felt familiar, though she couldn't place where she'd seen him before. That afternoon, Detective Martinez made a breakthrough. The military surplus angle led her to investigate recent thefts from Fort Carson, 2 hours south of Cedar Falls. 3 months earlier, a significant cache of weapons had gone missing from a storage facility. The theft had been reported, but never solved. The missing inventory matches exactly what Officer Thompson described, she told her captain. Someone's been running stolen military equipment through our mountains. Captain Rodriguez, a 20-year veteran of the department, studied the evidence with growing concern. This isn't just local crime anymore. We need to contact federal authorities. But Martinez had another worry. "Sir, I think the Chen girls might have seen more than they realize. If this operation is as big as it appears, the people involved won't hesitate to eliminate witnesses." That evening, Linda Chen received a phone call that made her blood run cold. The voice was electronically disguised, but the message was crystal clear. "Your daughters should learn to mind their own business. Accidents happen to curious children." Linda immediately called Detective Martinez, who arrived at the Chen house within minutes, accompanied by 2 patrol officers. "We're moving you to a safe location tonight," Martinez announced. "This isn't a request." As they packed quickly, Emma clutched her notebook where she'd been recording details about their discovery. "Mom, I remembered something else. When we first got to Officer Thompson, I saw fresh tire tracks leading deeper into the forest. Someone had been there recently." Lily nodded, adding, "And there were cigarette butts on the ground. Someone had been waiting there for a while." These details, combined with the military connection, painted a picture of a sophisticated operation that had been using Cedar Falls's remote location to move illegal weapons. The attack on Officer Thompson wasn't random. It was an attempt to eliminate someone who'd gotten too close to the truth. At a secure location across town, the Chen family spent an uneasy night under police protection. Max seemed to sense the tension, staying alert and positioned near the girls at all times. The dog's earlier behavior in the forest now made perfect sense. He detected the scent of danger long before humans could recognize it. The next morning brought news that would crack the case wide open. Federal agents had traced the stolen weapons to a network operating across 3 states, with Cedar Falls serving as a crucial distribution point. The brass button Emma had found contained DNA evidence that linked directly to a former Army sergeant named Michael Torres, who'd been dishonorably discharged 2 years earlier. But the real shock came when surveillance footage from a gas station near the forest showed the dark pickup truck the girls had described. The driver was clearly visible. Councilman David Walsh, one of Cedar Falls's most respected citizens and a vocal supporter of law enforcement. He's been using his position to provide cover for the operation, Martinez explained to her captain. His construction company has contracts all over these mountains. Perfect way to move equipment without suspicion. The arrests came swiftly. Torres was picked up at a motel outside town, still wearing the military surplus jacket that was missing its button. 2 other men were found at the mountain cabin, along with enough evidence to connect them to multiple weapons trafficking operations. Councilman Walsh was arrested at his office, his shocked constituents watching as he was led away in handcuffs. The investigation revealed that his involvement ran deep, providing not just cover, but also inside information about police patrol schedules and investigation priorities. Officer Marcus Thompson, still recovering but determined to see justice served, identified all 3 men from his hospital bed. The evidence was overwhelming. DNA, fingerprints, financial records showing Walsh's unexplained income, and testimony from the twins whose sharp observations had provided crucial details. A week later, Emma and Lily Chen stood in the hospital lobby, finally meeting the man they'd saved. Officer Thompson, though still pale and moving carefully, greeted them with a smile that spoke of genuine gratitude. "I owe you my life," he said simply. "But more than that, you helped us stop something that was putting weapons in the hands of criminals across the country." Emma, typically direct, asked the question that had been bothering her. "Why did they leave you there? Why didn't they make sure you were dead?" Thompson finished gently. "I think they thought they had. The location was remote enough that they figured no one would find me in time." "They didn't count on Max," Lily said, scratching their dog behind the ears. Thompson knelt down to Max's level, looking into the dog's intelligent eyes. "No, they sure didn't. Good boy." The formal recognition came a month later, at a ceremony attended by federal agents, state officials, and most of Cedar Falls. Emma and Lily Chen received civilian commendation awards for their courage and quick thinking. Max, wearing a special collar denoting him as an honorary police dog, received his own certificate of appreciation. Detective Martinez, who had become something of a family friend during the investigation, spoke at the ceremony. "These young women remind us that heroism isn't about age or experience. It's about doing what's right when it matters most, even when you're scared." The weapons trafficking network was completely dismantled, with arrests made in 3 states. Walsh received a sentence of 15 years in federal prison, while Torres and his associates faced similar terms. The stolen military equipment was recovered and returned to proper custody. But perhaps the most important outcome was less visible. The Chen family discovered that their community would rally around them when needed. Neighbors they'd barely known brought meals and offered support. The school organized a safety education program inspired by the twins' actions. And Officer Thompson, fully recovered, began teaching first aid classes to local children, ensuring that Emma and Lily's knowledge would spread to others. Emma still carries her notebook on their forest walks, though now those walks include a police escort. Lily continues to notice details that others miss, a skill that may one day prove valuable again. And Max remains their faithful guardian, his nose still fine-tuned to detect trouble long before humans can sense it. The mountains around Cedar Falls keep many secrets, but this one had been dragged into the light by 2 12-year-old girls who refused to walk away when someone needed help. In a world that often seems dark, their story reminds us that courage comes in all sizes, and that sometimes the smallest actions can have the biggest impact. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to remember that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. Subscribe for more stories that celebrate the quiet heroes among us. And remember, You never know when you might be called upon to make a difference in someone else's life.